Welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Jacqueline. This is part of my jungle. If you are not new here, thank you for coming back. So today is day one of PLANTMAS, and I figured that we would talk about winter care for your plants, because this is a really common question that I get from you guys, especially newer plant parents that might be heading into their first winter with their plants. And if you're not living in Florida, this is a problem usually. So if you didn't know, I am located in Connecticut, which is the northeastern part of America if you're in a different country. So it gets pretty cold here. Not super duper cold, but it gets pretty cold. And I do a few things to make sure that my plants are still happy throughout the colder months, because up here in the northern hemisphere, we're also getting less sunlight in the winter months. So mainly the thing that you're going to be concerned about is lighting. So if you have most of your plants in windows and you are relying on the sunlight for your plants, then grow lights might not be a bad option for you. It really depends on the plants that you have and the setup that you have. So if you have a bunch of Hoyas hanging out in your window and you want them to keep on growing throughout the winter, like they very well may, depending on how much light you get in that window. If it's a north-facing window, you're probably gonna have an issue. But if it's a south, a west, or even an east-facing window, you probably won't have too much of a problem. The main problem then would be the temperature. So Hoyas aren't as finicky as other plants, but if you have any ficus, girl, pull them away from the window like ASAP. My ficus absolutely hate drafty windows. They will lose leaves. They will look like trash. But if I keep them pulled back, like behind me here, and still getting some nice bright light, they'll actually keep on growing through the winter. So a lot of my plants will keep growing through the winter, and you can absolutely get your plants to do the same. The trick is really just mimicking that environment. So the ways you're going to want to go about that, like I said, are grow lights if you're not getting enough light for your plants in the winter time. And you want to be mindful of the temperature. So maybe if you have some sensitive plants that are near drafty windows or doors, you're going to want to find a different space for them. And you may need grow lights for that as well. So there are some really cheap options that you can just get at Home Depot and stuff. You really don't need to get anything fancy. It just comes down to aesthetics and what you prefer when it comes to a grow light. There are some really cheap options. I can leave a couple linked down below of my favorite lights and bulbs and stuff along those lines, and what I use if you're interested in that. So you're also going to want to be mindful of how often you water your plants in the winter, since the temperatures are not going to be quite as warm. You're not going to be watering your plants as often because they're likely not drying out as quickly. Now this depends, because if you are in a space where you have a lot of heat going all the time, it can actually dry the space out and you might need to water your plants more frequently. So it really depends on what kind of environment you're in. I know that when I was living at my mom's, we had like the old school radiators, so it would get really, really dry in there, and my plants would need to be watered even more in the winter than any other time of year because of that. A way to remedy that, of course, is a humidifier, which I highly recommend doing if dryness is an issue in your environment. So for me here, though, it is a little bit chillier in here, and my plants are not drying out as quickly, and we don't have that old school heating here, so it's not as dry, and like I have a lot of humidifiers going in here, and just the sheer number of plants that I have in here, like plants grouped together, will also up the humidity in your space. So just having plants in your space, like a lot of plants, not like just a few plants, like a lot of plants, you guys, will up the humidity in that space as well, and the temperature. The bedroom right now actually is like 70% humidity, but the rest of the apartment is not, because I have the humidifier going in there and it just keeps it all warm and humid. And I'm not mad about it. The windows are actually like fogged up in there. That's how warm it is. So that is definitely a thing. So there are like options for combating the cold for some of your plants too. And a lot of people use heat mats. I'm very hesitant to recommend that to you guys, because you can burn your plants with heat mats pretty easily. So I don't ever recommend putting them directly on it. But if you have some other way that you are able to set up heat mats that are not directly touching your plants, then they wouldn't hate it. I'm actually considering maybe putting one on the floor underneath my cabinet, so it's not touching anything, but the heat is still rising slightly, because my Hoya cabinet is pressed up against a window and a brick wall where it gets really, really drafty and cold. So that is an option. If I do that, I will show you guys the process. Obviously, that's really it. That's all I had to say about heat mats. Just be careful if you are going to use them, because they can damage your plants pretty quickly and pretty easily. So there's that. So humidifiers, I know not everybody loves them, but they're not necessary for winter care. And I want to stress that, because like humidifiers in general are not necessary unless you have some plants that are particularly finicky, like philodendrons, who like to get their leaves all stuck and stupid. Then you're definitely gonna want the extra humidity. But if you just have some regular houseplants, you guys don't need extra humidity. Just like if you have a bunch of rare anthuriums and stuff, you might want to consider like a cabinet or a tent or something along those lines if you're worried about those plants in the colder months. But if you've just got like some pothos and Hoyas and Scindapsus, like they're not gonna love it, but they're gonna be fine. Like you might lose some leaves. It's really normal for you to lose leaves in the winter. You're not doing anything wrong, I promise you. It's just something that happens. The plant is not getting as much light as it was before, and it's sacrificing some leaves. It's pretty normal. It's just the process of the plant. So you do not need a humidifier. Do I recommend one? Absolutely. I love my humidifiers. They make my life so much easier because they help keep the plants moist without me having to just like constantly water them. And I know that it's keeping the plants happy and it's keeping them growing. Obviously, I don't use my humidifier in the summer because it does get quite humid here and it's not necessary. But in the winter months, I love it. Let me tell you, it makes a huge difference for me too. Like I can't sleep in a dry environment. I don't know about you guys. It's better for your skin as well if you're concerned about like wrinkles and whatnot. So there's that. A humidifier in the bedroom is never a bad thing while you're sleeping. So you do want to be careful, obviously, with keeping it clean and bacteria and fungal buildup. You don't want water sitting on your plants. That's not a good thing. So I always make sure that it's just pointed away from the plants. And in the greenhouse, I have a fan going in there, so it's not just like landing in the same place over and over again. So there is that. And the last thing really is the growth of your plants is gonna slow, and that's normal unless you're again mimicking that same environment all year long, which is completely possible. I really am not a fan of the notion of like waiting until spring to do things with your plants. If they're still growing and they're still doing their thing, like it's fine. It's absolutely fine. They shouldn't think that it's winter if you're keeping them inside in a warm environment. Like, your plants don't know what season it is because you're keeping them inside. Does that make sense? Like, the whole thing of like, don't fertilize your plants in the winter, don't repot your plants in the winter. If your plants are still actively growing, you do whatever you want to do with them. If they're dormant, then you don't need to fertilize or repot them. It's not necessary. But doing that isn't gonna murder your plant. I don't know about the fertilizer, depends on what you use, but like, it's not gonna kill your plant usually to repot it in the winter. So I'm not exactly sure where that comes from. There might be some plants that are more sensitive than others that I definitely will wait, like ficus, because they hate me for touching them ever. And if you just leave them alone, they're fine. But every time you touch them, they throw a temper tantrum. So like, yeah, sure, maybe wait till spring to repot your ficus. But otherwise, like, I repot stuff all year long. Because if I didn't, then I would have a lot to repot in the springtime. So I think that's it. I'm just checking my list. You're going to want to water less, usually, depending on the environment that you're in. Your plants are going to be getting less light, so you might need some supplemental grow lights, which is totally fine. They're not expensive, I promise you. Most of them come with timers, or you can get a timer that you plug into the wall. You can even hook it up to your smartphone. Really easy peasy. You have tons of options. I actually have all of mine on the Alexa thing, so it's like just all in one place. It's really, really easy. You can get the smart plugs at Home Depot. You might need more humidity, but again, it is not necessary. It is just a nice little extra bonus for your plants and for you in the wintertime when things get really dry. Like, the dry heat it's gross. I don't know about you guys, but it's gross. I hate it. Like, my skin feels like tight. My lips get chapped, like everything. It's not good. I don't like it. So humidifiers, highly recommend. I will leave my favorite humidifier in the comment section below for you guys. Lower temperatures might be an issue. So again, you're gonna wanna pull your plants away from drafty windows and doors. And heat mats, maybe, only if you know what you're doing. Please don't burn your plants. Like, it literally like just melts them. Please don't put your plants directly on a heat mat. I know there are ones you can control, but like, it's really risky, you guys. I don't like it. I don't recommend it, but you do you, boo. If you kill your plants putting them on a heat mat, I do not assume responsibility for that. Okay? Okay. And you know, fertilize until your heart's desire. I don't know. I forget to fertilize all the time. I have some new stuff that I want to try. My rule of thumb is usually if the plant is growing, fertilize it. If it's not, it doesn't need it. It's usually a pretty solid way to go about it. Let me know what you guys do in the comment section below. Let me know if there's anything that I left out, any questions that you have about how to care for your plants over the winter. How do you care for your plants over the winter? Do you even do anything different? I used to not do anything different, but then I acquired like too many plants and I had no choice but to do something different to keep them all alive. And let me tell you, my calatheas and begonias and things along those lines, they absolutely love living next to my humidifier in the winter months. It helps them not get crispy and stupid. So there's that. Anyway, I love you, fam. I hope that you enjoyed day 1 of PLANTMAS. Let me know what else you want to see for 25 days of PLANTMAS. I have a whole bunch of stuff planned, but I'm open to suggestions. And if you like this, you should give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything from me. There's a join button down there if you want to be part of the official plant fam. If not, there's a super thanks button if you want to super thanks me. Everything is appreciated. I don't know why I'm dancing. I can't do this without you guys. And yeah, I love you. And I'll see you later with another video. So stay tuned. Bye. You might need more Doesn't matter if the snow is falling or the wind blows in
was in